So earlier in the week, I kicked up a new series in which we look at cut or never implemented ideas for Guild Wars 2. Features and systems that are just a hair's width away from being playable, but the devs or bugs or whatever, for whatever reason, have not actually ended up coming into the game. Really interesting subject material to me, and you guys were super receptive to it, and it sounds like you want to see more, so I want to crack on in with a really big topic today. Now, I'm not going to butter up the video in terms of visuals and stuff. Just to be clear, most of this video, we're going to be looking at the ArenaNet blogs. And when I say blogs, I don't mean their official website. I mean their blog website that they used to post Guild Wars 2 news from back in 2009 and 2010. I'm going to take you a decade ago. We're mostly just going to be reading what they say in a few articles, of which there's like 2 of them. But bear with me because this is really quite interesting. And as far as I remember, I've never talked about it on YouTube. Mainly because this was something that was going on before the game even came out, and I guess at the time it didn't capture my enthusiasm. But in preparation for today's video, I've kind of gone over all the subject material, and suddenly I'm really sad. So I'm hoping that you guys will feel a little bit sad by the end of this. What am I going to be talking about? Well, the extended experience. This was an initiative before Guild Wars 2 came out to create a mobile or tablet app for this MMO. And so, well, what does that mean? Nowadays, your immediate interpretation in 2020 might be, oh, were they going to make the game playable on mobile? Remember, mobiles weren't quite that powerful. That was definitely more of an alien concept back then. And the idea of having, like, a PC game that has a mobile port at the same time is just mental. I mean, even to this day, I don't really know of any MMOs being developed like that. What they wanted was a companion app to the MMO, which would allow you to do a more refined subset of activities that nonetheless were meaningful. And contrary to what I believed before today, it was not just something they were talking about, it was actually something they had really been working on and showed to press at a booth during one of the conventions, where they definitely had some of the technology working. Here's the catch: after all the bravado and interesting things that you're about to hear them say about it, it never got implemented in the end. And they've never really addressed why. My guess has been, like with so many things in MMOs, that either it was just biting off too much than they can chew, issues with the technology, and particularly security, I think might have been the Achilles heel on this one. It is a bit weird and a bit crazy that people can log in to the same account from multiple different devices at once, and maybe there's all kinds of messy stuff that can happen. We all love the original login screen, right? And the beta login screen and the Guild Wars 1 login screen. Why don't they do it anymore? Well, because of annoying security stuff. It can affect the game's actual design. And, well, I think it's a safe speculation to say maybe it hit this app too. Only like once, I remember, on one ArenaNet stream in the past like 6 or 7 years, have they even mentioned this. The main going theory is that the head guy in charge ended up leaving the studio in 2011, and they never prioritized or never had the talent to replace him, and the team seemed to have been quietly moved aside. Much like with the day that the Guild Wars 1 live team quietly got moved aside, we never heard about it. So as a side note, I've never played an MMO with an app in depth, but apparently current retail WoW does. I've only played Classic, but apparently if you do play retail WoW, there's a companion app. I think it was tied to an expansion feature. Having a look at their reviews, they seem very mixed. They say that there's a quest tracker on there, a character viewer, you can figure out your stats, but not much else. And people don't seem too happy with it, like maybe the studio could have pushed it further. So not sure what that's all about. What ArenaNet was going for with their app you're about to see was kind of mental. It was introduced to us back on September 21st, 2010. This actual page, I can only get to using the Wayback Machine. God bless, thank you, the Wayback Machine. People say that stuff's on the internet forever, but I'll tell you what, guys, even basic information about Guild Wars 2 is becoming unavailable from those early days now, which just blows my mind. But there you have it, 10 years, and you're going to have to start using the Wayback Machine to pull back links from official sources. Anyway, here's what they said. Gaming outside the game, Rick Ellis talks the Guild Wars 2 extended experience. Now, let's talk a quick second about Rick Ellis. Rick Ellis does appear in the game's credits at Fort Trinity. You'll see him scroll by. I don't remember really seeing him on any convention floors or producing other interviews, and the Guild Wars 2 wiki nowadays lists him as an ex-dev. I didn't really do a big, deep dive on what's going on with his LinkedIn and stuff like that. But I'm guessing, yeah, he's not there anymore. And what happened to him and his team is pretty much shrouded in mystery. as far as I see. So here's what they said. Video games have evolved far past the button-mashing days when your entertainment was easy to forget because the game was simple. Games today often influence our emotions, making us feel as though we are part of the story, part of the game's universe, and that we matter in important ways. The end result is that, very much like other forms of entertainment, we find ourselves drawn to the experience even when we aren't in game. So a very fluffy opening here, really. Proof of this are the fan sites, the forums, and other applications that we devour in order to continue the in-game experience. The bragging, information sharing, and verbal sparring we engage in on these sites are all signs of high levels of passion and desire to continue the experience outside of the game. This is where my team comes in. My name's Rick, and I'm a tech director at ArenaNet. This is his credit in-game as well. He says, leading a dedicated extended experience team that provides extensions for Guild Wars 2. Notice plural extensions. These extensions allow players to participate in and contribute to the Guild Wars 2 universe in relatable and interesting ways without requiring a gaming rig. The use of web and mobile technologies means that this can be done virtually anywhere. So Rick will be talking a lot here. Like I said, he's gone. Now, one thing I am curious about is whether he did anything for the APIs. Because the APIs are really what this whole thing became. The idea being you give the community enough new ways to hook into the game, they'll make the app for you, basically. But we haven't seen an app as complicated or as great as everything they're going to be saying here. So maybe ArenaNet's plan is to slowly work to it. The APIs seem like they've been a bit of a problem for ArenaNet to maintain. And with the Steam release coming as I make this video, it sounds like they're going to be even more complicated. So anyway, the other thing to point out is extensions for Guild Wars 2. Plural. So they're actually going to talk about more than just the extended experience here, and almost in an offhanded way, none of which will come to light. So it sounds almost like they wanted us in the universe, but not just Guild Wars 2, because you don't have a gaming rig. Does that mean they were going to create games for mobile, even way back here? This wasn't their mind, and they would be set interior in the universe? Going on, he says, you shouldn't be wondering what your friends are doing in-game. You should always be connected to them to chat. You should be able to help or otherwise contribute to your guild or the game. While we'll be providing mobile and web apps for our marketplace and hero viewer, along with functionality you've already seen in other MMOs, so even around 2010, supposedly this was kicking off, these are not what we refer to as extended experience components. Why, you ask? Well, these applications, while useful, don't really allow players to participate in the game world. The auction functionality of the marketplace gets close, but it's essentially a solo activity that has little to do with the actual gameplay experience. I know many will argue this point, but think of it this way. Not many MMO players play the game just for the auction capabilities, but many play to socialize with their friends. And it's kind of funny, 10 years on, we've certainly seen and even had a podcast with people who really do just play for those auction capabilities. But it's true that they're a minority. So, get this, guys. It's not just the extended experience, which most people nowadays will talk about. They had a hero viewer app. Sounds like a good idea, you know, actually be able to see your equipment panel, your hero panel, maybe see your stats, maybe even in the game of today, an app that allowed you to use your different template slots and swap around and stuff might have been quite interesting. One thing that separates what we're doing from the rest of the MMO market is that we aren't using a simple one-way connection to get information from the game. We have constructed a high-speed connection to the Guild Wars 2 server and database architecture, allowing us to not only retrieve information from the game, but also push data into the game in real time. Now, if you guys are really curious about this stuff, just a few weeks ago here in 2020, I think they did at the Games Developer Conference a big piece about how ArenaNet server architecture works and stuff. Actually, quick correction, this happened in 2017. It's just people have been talking about it again lately. They actually do everything in Windows, which is interesting enough, I think. But so if you want more about this, they definitely don't do things by the book. It really is this key piece of technology that opened the door for us to create an almost endless number of applications. This is why we refer to our PAX demo as the tip of the iceberg. For those of you who are unable to attend PAX this year, I'll describe our demonstration in more detail. We were showing an iPhone and an iPad, both running a real-time world map and display. So two different form factors here, essentially, two different, aspect ratios, two different, completely different scales, really. I was so excited when I first read this about an iPad actually allowing you, in a broader sense, to manipulate the world map. You could see the dynamic events as they became active. They demonstrated the ability to watch friends move around in game, all exactly as it's happening in-game. We showed that users have the ability to chat instantly with anyone on their friends list. It's the two-way connection with our servers that makes it possible to chat between a mobile device located anywhere in the world and in-game players. So, you gotta remember, at this early time, ArenaNet didn't quite know where the true emphasis of their game was going to be. Nowadays, their emphasis is all over the place, and they've got like a raiding community, and they've got like jilted dungeon communities who refuse to go to fractals, and they've got a diminishing PvP community and diminishing world versus world community, and everyone's kind of all over the shop. Dynamic events might have been the be-all and end-all if the truly dynamic nature of them had come through, if people really got invested in protecting areas of the world and saving them and keeping them safe and all the economies and stuff worked. You never know. And in that world, having an app that shows you what dynamic events are up or down is really important. In fact, I still think this kind of works for world versus world of today. Imagine you can't queue because you're at work, but it's prime time and you want to see how well your guild is doing. You know, let's imagine the Alliance update is out as well. Maybe another one for the series. And you want to see what locations are flipped and so on. Now, obviously, there are ways to do that. But having an app dedicated to that kind of stuff and actually have it work for PvE meaningfully as well, it's pretty nice. So anyway, here's that little mock-up. Whenever you see stuff about the extended experience, it's usually this image. You can see what appears to be a friends list on the right, and you can see very early place names for various Queensdale locations. Like here it says trainer. I always like this because yes, at launch, the skill trainers really mattered. Sorry, not at launch. Pre-launch, the skill trainers really mattered. They would sell tiers of skills and stuff, and there was that whole plaza there. You have the bridge and so on. We all know what Queensdale looks like. Additionally, the world map shows the locations of all points of interest, all teleport locations. Interesting, they're not just happy to use the word waypoint. Any visible lore locations and the locations of all vendors and trainers, even if they're moving in the world. Of course, being an iPhone, iPad application, you can scroll and zoom the map in as well. Then quickly return to the selected character if she is off screen. Why you would use this to look at vendors when you can't interact with them, I don't know. The PAX demo was a sneak, and this was what they showed, guys. They had this built. The PAX demo was a sneak peek at some of the things the Extended Experience team is working on and was intended to make people think about the possibilities of what can be done. We've seen many great ideas pop up on the forums and of course many questions be asked, so we look forward to interacting with the community to keep you up to date on the cool stuff we're working on. It's really interesting reading back this, seeing how concrete they speak, when of course we know, because of how history went, that a lot of this wasn't concrete at all. I'd like to think this teaches me to be wiser next time, but you really can't see through too easily. So, it's as simple as taking Guild Wars 2, adding water, and voila, cool stuff happens, right? Well, almost. We can say that if we take a rabid fan base, add current mobile and web technologies, and mix with some magic ArenaNet dust, I mean, I read this so cynically now, we do have some awesome ingredients for providing applications to our player base, applications that are very different from what has been seen in the MMO space in the past. The mission of our Extended Experience team is to focus solely on building world-class applications. We are committed to making games more accessible and allowing our players to experience our game world anywhere, anytime. Now that you know the team and our philosophy, I'm sure the real question is, what else can we expect in the future? Without giving too much more information, we do have to keep some secrets. What you can expect to see is a series of apps that will share information with each other and the Guild Wars 2 system in ways that simply haven't been done before. This was very much ArenaNet of the day, doing things that hadn't been done before. The most prominent features for mobile and web users will probably stem from the ability to stay connected to the game world and, more importantly, your friends and guildies. We'll be doing as much as we can to remove the communication barrier that exists between in-game players and out-of-game players. How many times have you been away from your computer on a raid night and wish you could connect with your friends, monitor their progress, share your insights, and ultimately share in their victory? This is an interesting line because this was right as Twitch was bubbling to the fore and the idea of like streaming was bubbling forwards. And I would say that you kind of just get that experience through, you know, live streaming on whatever platform now. So I'm not sure that an app is even necessary for this. If this had all come out, this element, I don't really think would have meant much for most people in the end. The ability to socialize beyond the game boundaries is essential. And, you know, this is the other thing as well. Nowadays, everyone's got like a community Discord. and you're kind of able to connect via that in a lot of ways. You know, there are bypasses for how much this is needed. And it's one of the first things we're working on. Naturally, security and the protection of personal information are paramount importance with social features like this. With the broader possibilities for communication, we want to ensure people are always in control of who talks to them and when. Some kind of broken link, it will have just been some random concept art. I don't think it was an actual mock-up or anything. Beyond communication, we're exploring features that allow out-of-game friends to help in-game friends by locating places or items. Additionally, so look at this. You're going to help me find an item? That really doesn't translate into Guild Wars 2 of today. Additionally, we'll have a much tighter system for accessing and consuming wiki content. Now that's doable. This will greatly reduce the need to continuously jump out of the game to access websites for information. So when you play Guild Wars 2 now, if you just go to your chat box at any point, you type /wiki, and then you ping an item into it, or you ping a skill into it, or ping a trait into it, anything, and you press enter, it will immediately take you to the correct wiki page. Or you can type any term you like at all, and it will treat it like wiki search. And yeah, it has this kind of jarring alt tab. If you have multiple monitors, it's not so bad. But I guess they have this idea of having the wiki very easily at your fingertips, even just on your desk, so it doesn't take up a screen at all because it's on your tablet or on your phone. Future features for our mobile world map will include the ability to select a player and open the hero viewer, which shows information about the character. Now, this is interesting because there's never been an inspect feature that is in Guild Wars 2 that they actually endorse. Obviously, we've seen the community try to take that in their own hands, and people be punished for using such things. But I guess at one point, ArenaNet still thought that that might be okay. In a world where they eventually did decide they don't want people checking each other's gear because of toxicity and all that stuff, they probably went a bit too far down the rabbit hole of trying to smooth social interactions. If they had never made that decision, this would have worked, but they did. So I don't think this ever would have come in, even if the extended experience released. Stats, equipment, achievements, etc. Achievements, of course, yes, though. Or achievement score. Further, the user will be able to select a piece of equipment and retrieve information about where it came from, a location, an event, a certain boss, or even a portion of that player's personal story. Just really bizarre ideas here that you could get unique gear from unique areas. I mean, that kind of works, you know, special skins for specific choices. That would have meant a lot for the personal story. But before I elaborate, I'll move on. This will become about something completely different. Mobile users will also have the ability to tap a location on the world map, causing their in-game friends to see a radar ping appear on the minimap and their world map. So we can see this is kind of a thing in Guild Wars 2. The ping system is not as good as the Guild Wars 1 ping system, let me say. And certainly the APIs today can't do it. This is a great feature to help less experienced friends and guildies learn their way around. None of this actually sounds that useful to me. Like, I wouldn't use it much, but I'm at the PC a ton. The idea of, you know, when I was on these long train commutes every day, though, being able to get on my mobile and play from there or assist people from there, yeah, I think that actually does sound pretty good, and it makes sense. Hell, even the idea of multi-boxing, where I'm sitting at the PC playing and doing one thing, but at the same time, my phone is showing Queensdale, and I'm kind of being a bit of a mentor in Queensdale or something. I can imagine that, too. This is just the start, and obviously my rig doesn't fry because I'm running 2 full clients. This is just the start of where the team is going. In the end, we'll make all of our experience features tightly integrated with each other and the game, so that it becomes less and less important with each piece of hardware you're using to experience Guild Wars 2. And they have a very short Q&A here, where they say, when you say mobile, what does that mean? They wanted iPhone, iPad, and Android. I don't have a smartphone. Will we have the same functionality on the web? Yes, we'll have the same for web users. Which, you know, when I think about APIs, this is really all I think about here. Can I just play Guild Wars 2 on an iPad? They say, I'll never say never. Buying off more than you can chew. If not at this point, certainly this one. However, the iPad is certainly not the same caliber of gaming machine as a PC yet. Look at that. Even in 2020, the idea of playing Guild Wars 2 on an iPad. Do people do that? Having said that, there are certainly aspects of gameplay not far from the experience on PC. It all sounds good, but what if I don't want my guild messaging me at work? Well, yeah, we'll disable that, they say. So, yeah, that was our introduction to it. It was all very pie in the sky, and I remember it clearly. For most of us, this was the starting point, though, of course, there had been those demo booths from before that very few people had seen. And ArenaNet seemed very happy with their response, so much so they did a whole update later in which they quoted them. So, look at this. David Campbell wrote about Rick Ellis's post and said, "We took a spin around the web to see what people were saying about our post. PC Gamer notes how the Guild Wars 2 extended experience distinguished itself from other MMO apps by saying what sets this technology apart is the real-time connection to the game world itself and the fact that information can be shared both ways." For IGN, Nick Colon wonders if the extended experience is too much of a good thing right here. Now, I don't know whether that's just like some horrible PR there, or he's actually saying, no, this is too good to be true, in which case he's kind of a philosopher there, I suppose. But he ultimately concludes, "I'm actually very excited to try this out and see how mobile platforms can be used as a tool to enhance the social side of an MMO experience." Really interestingly as well, finally, we got Massively, where Ruby Bayer, who is obviously now, working at the studio, you'll be very familiar with from the streams for many years now. She said at the time, this was a combination of functionality and the social appeal impressed her, and so far they feel like they've hit upon a good balance. So the devs really were abuzz about this. Finally, we had one more post about this before they went quiet, and it was a few weeks later in which they kind of did a bit of a Q&A. Here's what they were asked. "Considering that Guild Wars isn't officially supported on Mac, can we interpret the news about the extended experience, which is supported on iPhones, iPads, and iPods, as indication Guild Wars 2 will be playable on Mac? Currently, we're developing it for the PC only, although extended experience will be supported, blah, blah, blah." This is an interesting question in the kind of topic of this video is them over-promising and under-delivering, but this is actually the reverse. Here they're under-promising, and of course, the game is out on Mac now, and I remember for a very long time going into release, there were a lot of people that wanted this game on Mac and were very disappointed, even like annoyed, chipped off that it wasn't on Mac. And of course, the devs did get round to that in the end. Are there any plans to support the Guild Wars 2 extended experience on WebOS? Well, there's no plans here, but we're still in the early stages. As it progresses, our capability will increase, so we're not ruling anything out. Will all the features on the mobile apps be available on the web? I'm concerned that because I don't have a smartphone, I'll be locked out or miss out on cool features. Not to worry. It will provide the same functionality on the web, so non-smartphone owners will be able to access all the features. It's weird to think of a large enough proportion of your user base not even having a smartphone at this point, but back then I think it was more plausible. This person asked what I just proposed. Can I be in-game with one character and use the app to chat to friends using a different one? While you're active on the mobile device, you aren't in-game with a character, so if you chat with someone, you will appear to them as yourself, but as a mobile user. And are you concerned that this application will become a must-have, thus potentially causing a segregation of players? This is really funny to me, the must-have app that never was. And this is kind of a reverse of this question here, and basically saying, look, is this going to be so good everybody needs it? And they say, look, it will enhance your experience, but it's not necessary. We don't want anyone to feel like they have to have the apps in order to be competitive. That's really the big MO, and ArenaNet, to this day, I think are very, very good about that. And then finally, actually a pretty good question. Will we get the Guild Wars 1 Observer mode here? So, you gotta remember, they really cared about PvP, and the idea that I could spectate in-game is pretty good. Again, Twitch kind of covers that to an extent, but they say that's definitely in the realm of possibility. We haven't announced any such features, ... yet. We can't wait to see what other cool features your team will develop in the coming months. But the coming months never happened. So, that takes us to today. Many people have talked about the fate of the extended experience. Was it just that the lead left and so then the whole team crumbled? Was it all a bit of a facade and there was a lot less going on than they were actually initially hoping? Again, I think maybe the guy left around 2011, which would have been a year before the game's release. Maybe everything crumbled there. The answer, I think, after launch has obviously been with the APIs. And with the APIs, you definitely can do a lot of stuff on your phone. And there's even been some weird apps over the years. I remember there was like a Quaggan app that was like a trading post app made by the community. But again, the API's functionality just hasn't extended that much. So we've never been able to do a thing where we log in on our actual account on our mobile and chat with our guild and appear as a mobile user and all that kind of stuff. Maybe one day, if the devs look much deeper at the APIs, maybe this video is really just a case for API development to continue and let the community figure this stuff out. But honestly, I have very little faith we're going anywhere fast, and it would have been so nice to have something official from the studio. Looking back at the success of WoW's and Blizzard's app, and looking at the proliferation of other services like Discord, as I said, that help you build communities out of game anyway, I do wonder whether there's less need for it now than there was in 2010. Really, I challenge you guys in the comments, what is the ultimate thing that this app could execute? that Polymorph had been added and you could play it from here too. That is really everything about the extended experience. I've never talked about it on YouTube. I've always found it quite interesting. And so now, hopefully you guys are in the loop. I'm really curious to hear your take on this. I mean, I think the more response that we get down in the comments on this one, the more value a video like this will have. Do you guys think you would have just glossed over this and ignored it? I mean, I know it all sounds cool, but I think I'm more excited about it reading it now in 2020. And sad that it never happened in 2020 than it actually was in 2010. In 2010, I was still just mostly interested in the game, and now these peripherals are becoming even more interesting to me. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know what yours are, everybody. There's still so many interesting closed boxes and lost features over the years, which I will be getting to in an upcoming episode of The Graveyard. So thank you all. I'll see you there for that one. Have a good evening.